Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below.
Greetings once again, Pokemaniacs! Duuz-Diz-Din back again with more of the Pokemon Adventures manga. The Black 2 and White 2 story arc, where previously, the Plasma Frigate is going all across Unova, freezing city after city, all at the command of Colress, and behind him, Getsus. Looker is trying his best to find Blake, running into the Magician, who notifies him that because the Magician is backdoored into the International Police's database, he has found that Blake has been terminated of his duty because he took the Genesect Pokemon without any prior authorization, so he's been cut loose. Meanwhile, Sheeran and the class, who had been knocked unconscious by Fungus from Whitley during their confrontation trying to find out who the Team Plasma member was that Hugh accused her of being, they found themselves in an underwater tunnel, having been taken by Marlon, the new gym leader, as well as Alder's grandson, Banga, who had been expelled from school for picking a fight with Hugh, Leo, and Blake on the first day. But Marlon has been rounding up whoever he can to fight back against Team Plasma. Naturally, Roxy's in, but Sheeran is still worried about Blake as well as Whitley right up until Whitley comes up, unable to speak for some reason, not knowing that it's actually Zoro in disguise. You also find out that Iris is, in on the action but still hasn't shown up just yet. As they rally, Blake finds himself waking up in an under-the-ocean cave, having been saved by Keldeo when they were frozen by Kira. Whitley, because of her handcuffs coming free, stuck around because she still wishes to help out the Pokemon who are suffering. Blake ends up finding out about his termination, but decides to continue on with his mission, later telling Whitley that's because that's all he knows. He was orphaned at a very young age, taken in by the International Police, and taught that justice matters most above all else. So even not being an international police officer anymore, he still wishes to continue forward. And in a show of callousness, after finding the frozen swords of justice after all this time, Blake decides to free them, despite the fact that doing so would overload the fire disc that Genesect has on its back, much to Keldeo and Whitley's shock. But when the Swords of Justice are freed, they manage to save Genesect in the nick of time. This shakes Keldeo's faith in Blake, but Cobalion tells him that at this moment, with the current crisis at hand, it is best to do what is needed. Sort your feelings out later. Meanwhile, White's quest in order to find the Lightstone has come to fruition thanks to Fennel detecting where it would end up. But as White arrives at its resting place, she encounters N. Though she is immediately on guard, N is determined to show that he is no longer a part of Team Plasma by taking them down, confronting Getsus and Kyurem, especially because Zekrom is drawn to Kyurem. Though he does advise that should he fall, she should do whatever she can to free Blake and make it so that he is the one to confront Getsus next. Unfortunately, that comes to pass, because just as Keldeo and the Swords of Justice are making their way to the surface with Blake and Whitley, something that Blake has had since he was a child causes him to rise rapidly to the surface towards the fight between N and Getsus. As it turns out, this weird orb that he has is actually something called the DNA Splicer that would merge Kyurem with one of the two dragons. In the process, Zekrom turns back into the Darkstone, sealing N within, and a reaction in the Lightstone causes White to be sucked towards it, bumping into someone familiar. A lot is going on. Let's see what happens next, shall we? Alright, adventure number 20, Dream World. Who's that Pokemon? Black Kyurem. Oh, the person that White bumped into was N. And floating in an odd space, White says, N? N? But as they land, White says, I thought you were sucked into the Darkstone. And says, that's right. White then questions, then this is inside the Darkstone? And says, there is an even more accurate name for this place than just saying it's inside the Darkstone. Zekrom taught me this is the Pokemon Dream World. Oh, the world of dreams that the Pokemon see when they fall asleep. Interesting. Yeah, I had to double check. This is based off of an actual game. Interesting. Good on the Pokemon manga, well, Pokemon Adventures for constantly, incorporating just as much as they can from the series. That is some odd but impressive finagling. White looks over the dreamlight scape, saying, Pokemon Dream World? That's right, Fennel told me about this place. The inside of the Lightstone is connected to the Dream World, and suddenly there's a scream that shocks her. Oh, and we see behind her, on a nearby floating isle, Black is shouting, no, it absorbed the Darkstone. I was too late. As we see Kyurem painting down the Darkstone, trying to absorb it. Black says, I was planning to be absorbed by Kyurem on purpose. The Reshiram and I would be able to attack Kyurem from the inside. White in shock says, but Black? Black, a little embarrassed, doesn't look at her, saying, sorry, boss. I didn't want to drag you into the battle, so I thought the Pokemon Dream World would be safer. And I dragged you in here. But don't worry, Reshiram will wake up soon, and then we'll be able to go outside. And could you attack Kyurem from the inside instead of me? And gives a nod, a very silent nod. Black says, Reshiram and I will attack from the outside and free the Darkstone. Free you and Zekrom from Kyurem. Oh, and boss, I'll need to talk to you about repaying the money I owe you again. Oh. No. Oh. They really did build this relationship pretty damn well, I gotta tell you. Without words, White just comes up behind Black and hugs him. Oof, I have to take that in. It's the emotions I have been missing from this series for such a long time. Like, I've grown on the character of Blake a little bit, especially knowing his backstory the way I do now. But this relationship, like, call it like like OTP or whatever you want to say, but like, good on them for really just making this moment hit. White, in a sad yet joyful tone, says, welcome back, Black. And Black, still very embarrassed, says, I'm glad to be back. That is right up until the little aisle that they're on starts to crumble and crack apart, shocking both of them. A voice calls out, cannot keep myself from waking any longer. White questions, who is that? Black says, it's Reshiram. White questions, what's wrong? Oh no, Black questions, what's wrong, Reshiram? Reshiram says, Kyurem has retrieved Zekrom just now and has turned into Black Kyurem. Behold. And they do indeed behold Black Kyurem with Getsus on board. Chorus, watching from the plasma frigate, says, wow, so this is Black Kyurem. Oops, got carried away a little. We can't lose control of Kyurem now that it has grown stronger by absorbing Zekrom. Getsus, my friend, according to information I have squeezed out of Zinzalin, Kyurem should be able to use a much more powerful move now that its cells have stabilized by absorbing Zekrom. Please use the colorless machine in order to use its move on Undelva Town. The name of this move is Freeze Shock. And, well, Black Kyurem does just that, unleashing a massive freezing blast on Undella Town. Chorus says, what incredible power! It managed to instantaneously freeze the ocean even without the frigate's help. Zinzalin tries to speak as Chorus says, oh Zinzalin, you've regained consciousness. As Zinzalin continues to try his best, getting nothing really out. Chorus looks at the monitor saying, huh? Is that the Lightstone? And so from within the Lightstone, Black and White can see the outside. Black saying, okay, let's do it, boss. White says, okay. Black calls back, catch you later, N. I'm counting on your super close range attacks from the inside. I think N is giving him some kind of gesture. Like, N is like not even a character at this point. He's just a plot point. Black then shouts, don't let go of my hand, boss. White says, of course. Ooh, I'll never let go of it. Oh my goodness, y'all are too cute. And they leap forward. As Black says, I'm so totally, absolutely not going to. As they fade back into reality, White awakens, looking down, seeing her Volibee, but then she notices she's no longer holding Black's hand. She says, Black? Did he fall into the sea? Black? No. Was it all a dream? Only for someone to call out, boss, up here. Is Black on top of Braviary with Reshiram above him. as he calls out, "Now I'm really back." He directs Braviary towards Black Kirim, saying, "Okay, let's drag Zekrom and N away from Kirim." But White on her Volibee zooms up next to him. I still think the Volibee should have evolved at this point. Like, it's kind of funny seeing White fly around on this little thing with tiny little arms. It's very akin to Chris flying around with her little Zatu on her head, and it just struggling to keep her aloft. But I don't know. I feel like White should have a Mandibuzz by now. It just feels like that should like show a little bit more of the growth, because I think at this point only one of her other Pokemon have evolved that we've seen. Her Stoliosis or whatever. But White calls out, "Let's go, Brave. Do you remember it? That move you practiced with Barbara 2 years ago?" Braviary gives a nod. And White says, "Okay, let's do it." Black questions, "What are you gonna do, boss?" White tells him, "Hold on tight so you don't get thrown off, Black." Never mind. This actually is a good display of White's abilities as they fly high into the sky and dive back down towards Black Kirim. Black says, "I see. Now I get it. You're amazing, boss." In that case, and Black has Braviary ram into Black Kirim's back as White has Volibee ram into Black Kirim's stomach. Freaking pincer move. Getsus says, "A delayed double attack." Black says, "It ain't double, it's triple," as we see Reshiram dive bombing towards Black Kirim. It seems to be charging up. But White calls out, "Wait, Black, stop Reshiram, stop." Oh, White says N is right above Black Kirim. Wait, why? How? I thought he was supposed to be because of the fusion. Black calls out, "Hold it, Reshiram," but Getsus tells Black Kirim to use Fusion Bolt, unleashing a massive blast of electricity all across the area, knocking everyone back. Oh no, it specifically hit Reshiram, as we see Reshiram falling out of the sky. Black calls out to Reshiram, while White questions, "Why is N outside?" N, who seems to have landed on the back of Black Kirim, says, "Sorry, I was thrown out the same time you left." Zekrom doesn't seem to know what happened either. If only I could hear its voice, but I can't hear Kirim's voice. Is it because it's being controlled, or is it because it turned into Black Kirim? Colress, through the communicator on Getsus, says, "Oh my," and can hear Zekrom's voice even after it has been absofused. Guesses, "I don't like the sound of that. I do not want it to have a bad influence on the absofusion and the Colress machine control. It's time your son took his exit." Getsus looks down at his son with a little bit of apprehension, or is it melancholy? "Is that emotion I see in your face, Getsus? It's hard to tell." N struggles, not able to get up, saying, "Father." As Getsus approaches, he says, "I never thought you'd become this worthless," and tries to call out to his father, but Getsus with his staff simply pushes N by the throat, throwing him off of Zekrom as if he was trash right into the sea. N calls out once again, "Father," as Black shouts for N, racing down on Braviary. But suddenly an odd fog or mist moves in. Black says, "What? I can't see anything. Boss." White says, "I'm fine. Let's stay here." Okay, that was weird. Was it called in by Black Kirim? As the fog dissipates, White and Black look around. Black says, "They disappeared. Black Kirim, the frigate, and N2. White calls out, "Black, over there. Reshiram and some people." Oh, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I forgot they were in this manga for a second. I completely forgot they were in this manga for a second. It sounds so bad, but it's just, once Black and White were back in the story, like everything just flowed together quickly. I'm just like, yes. And then it's just like, oh, right, Blake and Whitley. That was a thing. That was a thing that happened. As we see the Swords of Justice communicating with Reshiram. While Keldeo is checking up on Blake and Whitley, Black and White land. And as Black gets near the Swords of Justice, he's a little taken aback, saying, "You guys," while White looks at Blake and Whitley, saying, "Oh, these two." Black asks, "You know them?" White says, I noticed them falling into the sea. I thought I had seen them somewhere before. It's Dua Kid and Fungus Girl. Oh, God. Black says, what? White tells him, they're students from the Pokemon Trainer School. They're cheering students. They came to the Pokestar Studio project I was in charge of, and but as usual, Black is overwhelmed, saying, I don't understand a word you're saying. White tells them, I'll explain everything once things have settled down. At any rate, they're not our enemy, so don't worry. Well, and she sees the Pokedex in Blake's bag, saying, and picks it out, saying, well, they are Pokedex holders, like we are. Suddenly, okay, see, it's one of those things that make me not like Blake, because he suddenly grabs White's arm, twisting it behind her back. Black grows angry, saying, hey, what are you doing to my boss? But Blake shoves them into each other as they conk their heads against each other. Blake recovers his Pokedex, saying, excuse me, BW Agency President Miss White, and Unova Pokemon League first place Black. White says, you're Blake, and she's Whitley, two young trainers who were entrusted with the new Unova Pokedex from Bianca at Professor Juniper's laboratory. Blake says, you know that already. That will save me a lot of time. And Black, when were you rescued out of the Lightstone? Black says, oh no, it's still Blake, saying, I was not informed of that a few days ago. White questions, how do you know about that? The only people who know about that are Churn, Bianca, Professor Juniper, Fennel, and Lou, the guy from the International Police. Suddenly, Blake's cross-communicator starts to go off. Blake answers, saying, it's me. Looker says, Inspector. Blake says, Looker. And White says, that's him, Luke Carr. Looker says, Inspector, what's the meaning of you being dismissed, blah, blah. Magician said, blah, blah. And the commissioner, blah, 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 blah. Come on, don't treat Looker like that. Blake says, Looker, I'm a little busy, and I am no longer your superior, nor am I an investigator. If you want to receive orders, please contact headquarters. Over and out. Jeez. I swear to God, every time I start to sympathize, empathize, or anything with this kid, he says something that makes me go, you little shit! Blake hangs up, saying, I shouldn't have given him my personal phone number. Excuse me. White questions, you're an inspector with the International Police? Really? But you're a child. Blake says, ex-inspector. Miss White, you were still a child when you started your company. So isn't it the same? I mean, he has a bit of a point. White and me vibing on the same wavelength. She just says to the side, I don't know why, but he's annoying. Like, exactly. I guess that just shows that the mangaka did a good job, because it's just like, listen here, you little shit. I don't care how good you are at your job. You're pissing me off. But Blake says, at any rate, our common goal is to destroy Team Plasma and free Kyurem from their control, isn't that right? Black says, that's right. Oh, I'm going to have such a hard time keeping the Blake and Black and White and Whitley separated. That it's going to be my kryptonite here. Black says, that's right. Blake says, I need to know what's going on. Then I can decide what I need to do. Will you help me? White says, yes. Black explains, saying, oh, well, and Kyurem. And then White smoke. Blake says, I see, the DNA splicer. That thing I had was a key item needed for Kyurem's absorption. But I can't do anything about that now. The top priority is to find out the whereabouts of the Plasma Frigate and Black Kyurem. See, that's where Blake probably shines the most, just analyzing the situation and getting to the heart of what needs to be done. Blake points to Black, saying, Black, you already know what you need to do, so why aren't you doing it? Black is aghast and calls to White, pause. White says, I know how you feel, but hold it back. He just has that effect on people. Black says, I'm not doing this because you ordered me to. I'm doing this for myself. Blake gives a nod, saying, I know. So Black brings out his Musharna, saying, Musha, okay, my head's packed with my dreams. Eat up. God. Now that it's a Musharna, the way that it clomps down on his head kind of looks a lot worse than it used to now. I've missed him. I've missed Black. I have really missed Black. Oh man, just like a breath of fresh air to this series, I gotta tell you. But honestly, I'm interested in seeing all four of the main protagonists just work together. This is the one thing that was, I guess, lacking from the Black 2 and White 2 games, just having the previous protagonists actually involved. It's weird that they never even had a moment like that. I mean, you really could have had a moment that was very similar to in Pokemon Gold and Silver, or even Crystal, where the protagonist confronts Red. Like, dude, you could have done something like that. But from what I hear, you never see the protagonists of the Black and White games ever again. They're just off on some journey, and even their mother doesn't know where they ended up. I don't know, that doesn't sit quite right with me. Something about Unova just, the Pokemon Company seems to just want to distance itself from. Oh, but okay, now I had to look it back up. Apparently, for Scarlet and Violet, Blueberry Academy and the Indigo Disc expansion, that was actually in Unova. Okay, and currently they're doing that arc in the manga too. So there's always a chance Black, White, Blake, and Whitley could show up. Then again, I don't think they do much with the whole it's in Unova thing. Yeah, I don't know if that really connects too much. Yeah, I don't know. Dang, that's actually kind of sad because I kind of like Unova a lot. I feel like it's one of the more fleshed out regions out there. Oh well. All right, next chapter is Adventure 21. Deduction time. Who's that Pokemon? Clang. Okay, I at first I couldn't tell what we were looking at because it's just like that one panel is zoomed in on a very compromising angle on Whitley. And it's just like, okay, is it just my perverted brain? Or it doesn't feel like these manga could be doing some kind of sus stuff. They never go too far, not like they did in the beginning, but it's kind of sus sometimes. But Fungus emerges from Whitley's bag and starts to pat her on the face. Whitley saying, yes, I'll wake up. Morning, Fungi. And then she looks over to see Musharna glomping down on Black's head. And then she starts to freak out. She runs over as White grabs her saying, wait, it's fine. Well, Whitley says, it's not fine. A person is being eaten by a Pokemon. White thinks for a moment saying, how can I explain? Blake chimes in saying, Whitley, Musharna is helping him organize the information inside his head. See, this is where he excels. Thank you, Blake. White says, that's right. Black's head is always packed with his dreams. So packed that he can't think of anything else. Whitley questions dreams? Blake explains, saying, yep, he has Musharna eat them so he can see which information is needed to make his deduction. An extraordinary talent that he can make full use of thanks to his incredible memory and perception as well as his past experience. The international police know about Black's talent as a high regard for it. Oh no, White says, the international police knows about Black's talent and has a high regard for it, huh? Wow. Blake says, not only him, the international police evaluation on you, Miss White, is... White stops and saying, stop, I don't want to know. I want to know. That's actually kind of impressive. Then again, I mean, they did get involved in the whole goings on unprompted and with no assistance from the Pokemon League Association, and they were mostly working directly with the gym leaders. So, and that's essentially them working with the Pokemon League Association. But I kind of question, what did the international police think of the likes of like Red and Blue and Gold, Silver, most of the Pokedex holders? With how often these Pokedex holders are involved and help stop major crises, I'd love to know what the international police think of these Pokedex holders. But Whitley then chimes in saying, you're all right, Inspector. I'm glad. Blake gives this blank expression and then says, I am not an inspector anymore. And did you understand my explanation? White explaining the actual vibe of the situation a little bit more is like, hey. But Whitley says to her, oh, it's okay. I don't mind. It's like we sacrificed having a decent enough relationship between Whitley and Blake to have an even better relationship with Black and White. And it's just like, I feel the monkey's paw curl because it's just like, I like Black and White's relationship, but I wish there could be more between Blake and Whitley. Like, I don't need them to be lovers or in a relationship or anything, but God, I wish this kid could feel something. Whitley then asks, And these two are, Blake says, don't worry, Whitley. Everyone here shares the common goal of stopping Team Plasma and saving Kira. Suddenly, out of nowhere, as Musharna pops his head off of Black's head, Black cries out, "Whoa!" This scares Whitley as Black says, I saw it. I see it now. Come out, Bo. And as he brings out Embor. Oh, man, I freaking missed Black's Pokemon. Like, that's another thing. The bond we got to see between Black and his Pokemon was so fleshed out, and it's something that just hasn't been in this story arc, and that has been killing me. Like, you could call it filler or whatever, but man, those chapters where we got to really see and have the growth of the relationship of Black and his Pokemon are just like, oh man, I missed it in this story arc, because Blake just keeps obtaining Pokemon without any, growth behind it, and shit, he doesn't even have the majority of his Pokemon right now. And then you have Whitley, who's very hesitant to catch any Pokemon, so she doesn't really have many Pokemon with her. And oh man, I feel like all I could do at this point is just complain and compare the two. But Black brings out Embor, saying, come out, Bo. And Reshiram, you too. I need you to send out Blue Flare again. Reshiram does just that, directing it towards the ocean. Black points to the stream of fire, saying, Bo, remember the scent of the flare? Embor sniffs it, and Black questions, have you memorized it? Embor gives a nod. Black questions, what direction did the scent go? Embor points in the distance. Black saying, northwest, just as I thought. Blake comes up asking, Black, what did you see? Blake says, I saw three things. First, the frigate. That smoke screen was emitted by the frigate, and when it sprayed the smoke, the frigate was facing northwest. Second, the flare. Reshiram attacked Kyurem when it was falling down. Its move, Blue Flare, had actually grazed Black Kyurem. The base of Kyurem's right wing is currently burnt. The third is, how can I put it? I've never experienced anything like this before. I could see what Kyurem was thinking. Probably, I think. White is actually just mystified by just how much information he got out of all that. Like, buddy, how did you... I mean, you're impressive on a normal day, but that was next level. Black says, don't stare at me, but that's the only answer I got. I don't really understand it either. Blake questions, very well. And what did you see? And what did you see? Black tells him, a forest. But not just any ordinary forest. It was a forest at the bottom of a huge crater. That's where Kyurem wanted to go. Oh, right. We never went to the giant chasm. I completely forgot about that. Because there's a theory that in X and Y, the situation that went on there when the weapon, I'm trying not to explain too much, was fired, it was fired at Unova, and that's what caused the giant chasm. But that's just a theory. A game theory. I miss Matt Pat. But how much of that is actually a thing in general is kind of anyone's guess. But it's just this big old area in the middle of Unova that actually, no, not in the middle of Unova. Am I thinking of another area? Because there's this large sinkhole in the middle of Unova. But that's not the area that I'm thinking of. So the giant chasm is someplace else completely. Never mind. Okay. Forget everything I said then. But if you know what I'm saying, then I'm really interested in the lore behind that. Wait, no, that area in the middle. That looks like that's the dreamscape, isn't it? I didn't know that's where that was. The dream yard. No, not the dream yard. Yeah, Eternal Link. That's what it was. Okay, no. Okay, I didn't realize that's what that was. So that's where Bite literally just was. Okay, I thought that was something completely different. Never mind. That's wild. Okay, never mind. But Black says that's where Kyurem wants to go. Blake says, that forest you told me about doesn't exist. Black says, really? Blake says, the giant chasm. Have you heard of it? Black says, I only know the name. Blake says, me too. Blake tells them, it is located near Lacunosa town. In other words, northwest of here. Both Black and White are shocked. Blake declares, that's decided. We will head for the giant chasm. Black says, okay, I'm going to settle my score with Getz's once and for all. Right? He stole 2 years from you. Yeah, get yours. White says, let's leave right away. We need to register each other's cross-transceiver IDs in case we get separated. And I'll heal all of you too. White brings out her Alamomala, yes, I finally remembered its name, called Nancy, and has it use heal pulse on Reshiram and all of the Swords of Justice. Black says, come on everyone, get on Reshiram's back. Whitley questions, me too? Only for her suddenly to be picked up by the back of her shirt by Cobelion of all people, and placed on the back of Reshiram. I'm just as stunned as Black and White in this moment. They're like, okay, I would have expected any of the other Swords of Justice, but Cobelion? Ooh, man. Okay, Whitley. You got the big guy's approval. Okay. White looks to Cobelion in shock as Black says, wow, Cobelion helped you ride Reshiram. Almost got scared by it. It must really trust you. Black clasps Whitley's hand saying, my name is Black. I'm counting on you, fungus girl. Of all things. And then White hands over her card to Whitley saying, I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm White, the president of BW Agency. Nice to meet you, Whitley. By the way, Black, didn't you see where N fell? Suddenly, Whitley's heart starts to speed up. Black says, he didn't fall. He disappeared into the smoke. I'm sure of that. Whitley then shouts, then where did he go? A voice says, maybe he was captured by the frigate in that smoke. It's Blake saying, who knows when he'll come back to interfere with their scheme if they got rid of him in any way that made it hard for them to determine if he was alive or dead. They already failed once with us, so I find it hard to believe that they'd simply throw him into the sea. White says, right. Black adds, if they didn't kill him on the spot, they may have captured him to keep an eye on him. Whitley shouts, much to the surprise of everyone, we must hurry. Let's go after the frigate, to the giant chasm. Her apprehension at the moment just switched up real fast when N was involved. And so Reshiram takes off, with the Swords of Justice following below. I'm actually loving this. I'm loving how everything's kind of coming together. Whitley then thinks to herself, and please be safe. Please be safe. But White then clasps her hand, questioning, scared Whitley? Whitley says yes. White's look softens, and then questions, do you have a dream, Whitley? Whitley says, a dream? My dream is a world where Pokemon can live as they want to without getting hurt. And if the Pokemon don't mind, I want us humans to live with them. Black looks to White, and White smiles, saying, if you're scared, think about your dream, and live today to the best of your ability. I've been scared for the past 2 years. I felt like I couldn't do anything because I was so overcome with worry and despair. I took my time, did what I could. It's okay if you can't move forward. It's okay if you can't produce results. Just make an effort at doing all you can, each day, one day at a time. And then, finally, my dream came true, he says, looking towards Black. You guys are way too sweet. I've been watching how you treat the Pokemon, and I think you really could achieve your dream. Whitley says, okay, thank you very much, Black, White, Reshiram, and she looks to Blake saying, and ex-inspector. She's having this really sweet moment, and then there's Blake having this look like, why are you talking so much? Like, he just has that look on his face, like, God damn, kid. Man, your life is really no fun. Whoa, wait, Leo's Deano evolved? After all this time, Leo's Deano finally evolved into Azuelas. After all of this, I swear. But we pick up with Leo and you, sister. Still hate that that's all I can call her. As Leo says, that's the light from the outside. And the air isn't cold. It's probably not frozen outside. As they make their way out, they look around, with Leo saying, this is a construction site? Yeah, this is, where they're building the Pokemon World Tournament. Yeah, isn't that the place where you can challenge, like, everyone previously in the series? And this would have been a great excuse to have a lot of characters return. Alder, Bianca, Blaine, Blue, Brawly, Brock. I'm just going down the list in alphabetical order. Even Giovanni shows up here. But this is a great excuse for why, nobody's shown up yet. It's still under construction. Oh, hey! A voice calls out to them, who's there? Leo looks up saying, you're And it's Elise. Oh, of course, we had to get her new look in. I forgot all about that. Elise coming down on a couple of Molga, dog. Speaking of which, Molga, those are cute. Elise says, I've seen you before. You're a participant in the Pokemon League. Leo. We then cut over to Aspiratia Trainer School, where Hugh is still battling the forces of Team Plasma. I forgot this was going on. Right. Hugh's in pitch combat as one grunt's Triagonal uses Frost Breath, while another's... Oh, I haven't really seen that Pokemon. And it's an Audino. It's weird that they'd have an Audino. I figure those are usually much more friendly Pokemon. Well, Grunt has Audino use Simple Beam, and then they have another has their Whirlipede use Steamroller. Hugh says, stop its attack, Electros. And Electros does just that. As Hugh's P-Dove goes in on a Clank, the Grunt has his Clank use Protect, but Hugh says, P-Dove, bestow! And that causes... No, that's a Clank. No, that's just Clank. His Clank is suddenly wrapped up by a cloth? That's weird. Oh, its gears are all bound up. Hugh says, I've tied you up with the choice band. Now you can just stay there, protecting yourself. Suddenly a sock and throw move in, but Hugh has Electros use... Oh, no. The Grunt has their... Which one is it? Sock or throw? Sock. Use Low Sweep on Hugh's Electros. And then the throw uses Circle Throw. Hugh says, how long is it taking that rude geezer to find it? Suddenly, Chandelure comes in and unleashes a burning flame on the Team Plasma Grunt's Pokemon. Hugh says, wow, impressive Inferno. But the Chandelure motions for Hugh to go outside the window, where he sees Rude with the chip. Hugh recalls his Pokemon saying, you found it. Good. Let's get out of this place. As Hugh recalls two of his Pokemon, I guess the P-Dove and Electros, it's his Vibrava that takes him out over to Rude. Rude says, sorry to keep you waiting, Hugh. Hugh then asks, so what are we doing next? Where do we need to go to neutralize this whatchamacallit machine? Rude says, we have a device at White Team Plasma's hideout. We'll head down there. We then cut back over to the Pokemon World Tournament facility construction site, where Leo says, you're Elisa, the gym leader of Nimbasa City. While Elisa says, Leo, you're a student at the trainer school in Aspiratia, right? Leo, a little embarrassed, says, that's right. Why do you know about me? Elisa says, Sharon and your classmates at Castelia have been saved by Hamlu City's Marlin, and they've evacuated into the Marina tube. I was on my way to Castelia because Sharon asked me to look for you and the others. Oh, okay, that's very nice. Leo says, that's great to hear. Elisa gets on a communicator saying, I found one of Sharon's students. Skyla, come down. Okay, I didn't think we were actually going to get too many of the other gym leaders at this point. But then again, especially Elisa, because she has the redesign. Elisa says, you came out of the Relic Passage. But did you escape from Castelia City? Leo says, I heard my Oh, no, it's Hugh's sister who says, I heard my brother's voice from underground when we were eating Castelia cones. Oh, it was when he was saying, I've got nothing to tell you, Inspector Toxicroak. His sister says, I was worried because he sounded super different. So we found the entrance to the sewers, and just when we entered it, everything got frozen around them. Jeez. His sister says, the people who were frozen, are they going to be all right? Elisa doesn't really respond as she sees his sister's teeth chattering. She puts her jacket on her, saying, you must have had a hard time coming here. It's like a maze inside the passage, and it's filled with wild Pokemon. Leo says, yeah, my Deano evolved into a Zoelis. By the way, where are we? Elisa says, the Pokemon World Tournament facility construction site at Driftville City. Leo looks around asking, what is going on? Elisa tells him, Team Plasma's flying frigate is freezing the cities one by one. And that's a mouthful. Flying frigate is freezing. Leo says, Team Plasma again? Yep, again. Suddenly he hears a cry as we see Looker and his Krogunk trying to dodge Skyla's plane as it comes landing. He's nearly hit, but he trips just in time to get out of the way. Skyla disembarks, saying, sorry. Elisa questions, what are you doing? You almost ran over him. Skyla says, but I was going to land the plane there in the spot where the face fell down when this man suddenly jumped out. Looker gets up, saying, forgive me. Oh, and we see all of Blake's Pokemon around, including Fly Score. Looker says, "Forgive me, I noticed my superior's Pokemon on the ground, so." Leo then says, "Hey, you're," and he stares at Looker. Looker turns around saying, "Oh, who might you be? I've never met you before." Smooth. Skylar then says, "Sharon asked us to look for 3 boys. So which is Leo, which is Blake, and which is Hugh?" Looker says, "Huh?" Leo says, "What?" And Elisa just is like, "Oh my god, this girl." Leo then says, "I'm Leo, and this girl's Hugh's this girl's brother is Hugh, and this man is Luke Carr. He's a member of the International Police." the worst kept secret. Looker thinks to himself, how did he find out? Hugh's sister's questions, "Looking for my brother is missing too?" "No." Suddenly Leo's cross communicator starts to ring, and he has it right at the front of his pants, or his little costume thingy. Leo tells Hugh's sister, "It's Hugh." Hugh says, "Leo, are you all right? Is my sister with you?" Leo says, "Of course, I'll hand the cross transceiver to her. I think I keep calling it cross communicator." His sister says, "Hugh, where are you? Are you hurt?" Hugh says, "What about you?" His sister says, "I'm fine. Leo's been protecting me all this time. He's a really strong trainer, like you said." Leo starts to blush. Leo comes over saying, "Hugh, where are you? I'll go help you." Trying to act confident. But Hugh says, "I can't tell you. But don't worry. I'll come back as soon as I receive the Purrloin they stole from you 5 years ago," he says in the white Team Plasma base. Meanwhile, above Lucanosa town, we see the Plasma frigate trailing behind Black Hiram and Getsus. Getsus says, "What do you mean, my friend Colress?" Colress says, "Like I said, my friend Getsus." The way they keep saying that, like they're trying to convince themselves. "I don't know why Hiram is heading for the giant chasm." Getsus questions, maybe Hiram wasn't being controlled by the Colress machine. Maybe it's more like us than we thought. Colress says, "Hey, what are you saying? Aren't we friends? If you really feel that way, then why not just trade the Pokemon with Zinzalin and make it your own? I'd love to see you do it if you really can," he says, hanging out. Colress then looks to the hanging Zinzalin, saying, "Maybe Zinzalin regained his sanity and ordered it?" Or he teleports to a secluded room where N is tied to a table. As he says, "Is his son connected to Zekrom in some way? Maybe I shouldn't have captured him, but I've always had interest in humans who can hear the voice of Pokemon." Getsus seems to have the wrong idea that I am his personal attendant or something. So maybe it's time he was taught a lesson. Okay, Colress starting to get grand designs, I see. Suddenly, the grunt at the helm says, "Reshiram approaching from behind." Colress teleports to the, what's the word I'm looking for? The deck, saying, "Ah, that was fast. I see we have the Great Sleuth, the hero of truth." Oh, they look to the ground, saying, "There seems to be more of them." Getsus, as he sees the Swords of Justice running towards them. Getsus says, "I know. I have already given the order to take care of them." Keldeo says, "Yeah, we caught up with them. Cobelion, there," as they see the Shadow Triad on the bow of the ship. Terrakion says, "This is great. It's payback time for freezing us." Virizion says, "Yes." But Cobelion tells them, "You mustn't let your guard down," as they all bring out their swords. Meanwhile, the Shadow Triad brings out the Weather Trio, Landorus, Thundurus, and Tornadus. Ooh, this is a great matchup, all things considered. And so the Swords of Justice clash once again. We then cut over to the White Forest, where several Pokemon break free. Oh, wait, could this be... Oh, okay. Well, first of all, actually get to see one of my favorite Pokemon, Haxorus. Haxorus, Buffalont, and Coffagregus? Yeah, Coffagregus, all come bursting out of a frozen cave. As we see Iris complete in her, champion dress, saying, I'm out. Never thought I'd get trapped inside while I was training. I bet Marlin's waiting for me. I'm glad Grandpa was around. If I had been alone with Grandpa, I would have ended up wandering about the White Tree Hollow forever. Oh, my champion dress Grandpa gave me is muddy. A voice calls out, Iris? Which Grandpa are you even talking about? Oh, they're with Gorm. Okay. Iris says, I'm saying I managed to get outside because Grandpa Gorm's Coffee Regis guided us. Oh, he's calling Gorm Grandpa now. Wow. And the dress Grandpa Dryden gave me is muddy. Alder says, what? You don't have anything nice to say about me? Iris says, that depends on what you do after this. Alder says, okay. I'll settle my score from 2 years ago like the former champion I am. Iris says, that's more like it, Grandpa Alder. Okay, Alder's back in the action. Good to see him. I'm actually glad that he's back, because it just felt weird that he just kind of disappeared from the story the way he did. Alright, and the last chapter of this video and volume, it's adventure number 22, Giant Chasm. Who's that Pokemon? White Hero. And knowing that has unfortunate implications about what happens next. You pick up in the frozen Opelucid City, where Drayden asks, how is it, Owen? Wait, Owen? That was his name? I could have sworn his name was something else. Yeah, no, Logan. Yeah, his name is Logan. Dr. Logan. Dr. Logan says, yes, they're alive. I guess you could say that they're in a state of cryogenic sleep. I have heard of cases when people were freed from a frozen state in Kanto and Johto. Thank you for that. I feel like this is just that on Masca, but that had long-term repercussions on the people. Like, I guess maybe it's finessed a little bit better with the legendary? Logan says, I'll call them right away and ask for help. Oh, meanwhile, we see Clay and his workers saying, hey, Tavares, Tibor, Pascal, Frederick, split up and open the doors of the buildings. His men say, yes, sir. As we see Clay trying to get his excadrill to drill through a building so that the people trapped inside because of the ice can get out. He says, don't just stand there, get to work. A voice calls out, hey, Clay, we've come to help. Clay says, you guys. It's Chili, Salon, and Cress. Chili says, I'll take care of it. Simi here. And Simi-Seer manages to burn away the ice so that the doors can open. Chili says, yay, it's open. Drayden tells the people, over here, everyone. The evacuation center is this way. Be careful not to slip, only for Drayden himself to slip. His assistant, Kimmy, comes up, saying, are you all right, Mayor Drayden? Drayden says, Clay comes over saying, Drayden, it's going to be embarrassing when the rescuer is being rescued. Kimmy says, I'll guide the others. You go down to the Kirin battle. Drayden says, what? I cannot turn my back on the citizens who are in trouble. It is a job of a policymaker to ensure the safety of the citizens and remove any worries they have. Oh man, you must not know a lot of mayors. I told Iris and Gorm everything I know. Alder has finally started to move, and most important, the heroes have joined the battle. Cut over to the Giant Chasm, where Black, White, Blake, and Whitley have arrived on top of Reshiram. Black calls out, this is it. This is what I saw. White questions, where's the frigate? But Whitley spots it, saying, over there, as she points to a clearing where the frigate has landed. Blake says, I don't see Black Kirin. They must know we are after them. Why aren't they attacking? White says, we'll be easy targets if we stay here. Let's land. Black says, right. As Reshiram goes to land, they make their way through the forest. Blake says, this way. White questions, you know? Blake tells her, I was here before to fulfill my duty to arrest the 7 sages. I never forget the geographic features of a place I visited. But suddenly, Blake hears a rustling. He tells everyone to shh as Gorm of the 7 sages makes his way out. Black says, that's Sage Gorm. Oh, no, Black says that's, and Blake says Sage Gorm. Black sends in his braviary, while Blake sends out his adjustable handcuff. But they get in each other's way as Blake ends up nailing Braviary in the back of the head. Black says, don't get in my way, and you're not the police anymore. Blake says, you think that means I'm not going to take wanted criminals into custody? You're wrong. But White tells the two of them to stop. Orm tells them, I know you're thinking about what happened at the Nasri Museum, and I know Blake has his duties. But, oh no, White says, I know you're thinking about what happened at the Nasri Museum, and I know Blake has his duties. But Gorm and Rude are our friends who are cooperating with us. Whitley comes up saying, is that true, Sage Gorm? Gorm says, Black says, if the boss believes you, I'll believe you. Suddenly a voice calls out, oh, it's Iris saying, you trust everything the boss tells you? I'm so jealous. Black says, huh? Who are you? Iris says, me? And then she breaks down saying, you forgotten about me? But I've been longing to see you. How could you? And she grabs onto Black. Black says, whoa. He says, I think you're mistaking me for someone else. Boss, White says, that's enough, Iris. Give him a break. Black says, Iris? Iris says, I get why you didn't recognize me. I'm not the girl you trained with before or fought in the tournament. I'm a true champion now. Black says, champion? Of what? Iris says, do you know the league, of course? Black says, huh? But Blake tells them, you can catch up with your old friend later on. Gorm, please keep your explanation short, depending on the situation. I'm willing to hold back on your arrest. Gorm says, my job was to gather information on the dragons of the Unova legend. I gathered documents, artifacts, anything I could get my hands on. Black says, the reason you tried to steal the dragon bone from Nasserim Museum is... Gorm says, right. I had provided information to Mayor Drayden, an authority on dragon types, to plan a countermeasure for when Getsus used Kurum to take over the Unova region. That's why... Oh, Iris says, that's why Grandpa Gorm, Grandpa Alder, Benga, N, and I are all living at the White Hollow Tree to train. Whitley says, what? N and Champion Alder? Okay, so that's where they've all been. They've all been training up after all this time. Okay, so Alder and N have long since buried the hatchet over what happened. And Whitley says, what? N and Champion Alder? Well, Blake thinks to himself, Benga is the student who was suspended from the trainer school. He's Alder's grandson. He could have shared that with everyone else. Iris explains it so. I've got the champion in N, the guy who beat the champion before me. If the best two are there, it's only natural to challenge them, right? Black says, and you won? Iris says, that's right. While you were gone, I gathered the badges from scratch and fought the Elite Four. It took me 2 years, though. Black says, and then he shouts, I'm gonna beat Iris. I'm really gonna beat her. Iris says, I knew you'd say that. She turns, saying, right, boss? He's back. He really is back. Oh, she has a slight tear in her eye. That's actually cute. White says, Meanwhile, Whitley thinks to herself, Champion Alder, and said he fought and defeated Alder since he was an enemy to Pokemon Liberation. What is he doing with that person? Oh man, a lot of what she used to believe is being shaken. Suddenly a voice calls out, have you had enough? It's Colress above with Black Kurum and BEM. Colress says, you are taking forever, so I've come for you. I can't believe you're having a friendly chat in the middle of enemy territory. Blake calls out to Colress. While Colress says, look, it doesn't really matter whether you're in the air or in the forest. As long as you're inside the giant chasm, you were in charge of gathering the dragon information. So you know what the giant chasm is. Gorm says, I do. It's basically Gurum's home. Colress activates the Colress machine, saying, so you must understand that Kurum is capable of attacking you no matter where you are in the giant chasm. The chasm only enhances its power. Oh man, and Black Kurum sends out a massive electrical attack that shocks everyone in the chasm. As everyone cries out, Black tries to say, Reshiram. Colress says, Reshiram can't tell what you're saying. Although, even if it could, Reshiram's paralyzed and frozen, so it can't do anything. You'll all freeze inside the giant chasm, and as the area starts to be coated more and more in ice. Wait, Colress says, oh, that was so close. Black Kurum freeze shock. Okay, so I guess the freezing came up a little short. But suddenly a voice calls out from above, it's over, Colress. Meanwhile, the Swords of Justice are still battling against the Weather Trio and the Shadow Triad. But Keldon notices something, saying, the giant chasm is frozen. Rising says, Keldon, you must determine your true enemy and the reason you fight. Why are you even here when you should be fighting your own battle somewhere else? Keldon says, but... Tracheon says, then what? Are you saying my mentors are going to lose if I'm not around to help them? Is that what you think? Cobelion says, stop pampering yourself in your position as our junior disciple. You must face your greatest enemy as an independent Pokemon. If we were a threat that you had to defeat, then you would have to get rid of us. If we were on the verge of the end of all things at the greatest opportunity to finish the enemy, then you would have to abandon us. That is what it means to have true determination. Keldon struggles with this and cries out as Colress says, Black Kurum, freeze shock, freeze shock. But a voice above him says, the device to neutralize the Colress machine has already been activated. Kurum has been liberated from your control. I told you, it's over, Colress. Rude says above on a Woobat? Swoobat. Whitley cries out, Sage Rude. Colress says, Colress machine neutralization device? Who gave you permission to give it such a silly name? Rude says, the proof is that Kurum won't follow your orders. But Colress calls out, Black Kurum, freeze shock! And Black Kirim does just that, apparently. Oh, wait. Suddenly, much to Colress's bewilderment, the Darkstone pops out of Kirim, and he turns back into regular Kirim, but he draws his eyes on Reshiram. White says to turn back into the normal Kirim. Kirim then sends out its beams from its wings, and turns Reshiram into the Lightstone, drawing Reshiram towards it. As White says, it's got Reshiram now. Black calls out to Reshiram, and as the Lightstone is absorbed, Kirim turns into White Kirim. Korra says, I see. First you wanted to absorb Reshiram, who has been a threat to you, so you could annihilate the enemy. That shows the Colress machine has not been neutralized, Rude. Then Ice Burn, and Kirim gets ready to fire. But then, it looks towards Colress and fires at him. I think Colress manages to dodge, but everyone else is shocked by this. Colress says, what? Rude says, I told you, it's over. Blake then says, a hunk of junk will always be a hunk of junk. Colress pauses a moment and says, you're right, this was a hunk of junk like you said. I don't need this hunk of junk, he says, tossing the Colress machine. He smiles, saying, time to call it quits. I'm leaving Team Plasma. Really? Colress, you jerk. He tells them, feel free to capture Kirim and arrest Getsus. He says, taking off. Black cries out, come back here. But Blake stops him, saying, I'll go after Colress. Please take care of Kirim. Blake hops on his Genesect and takes off. But as Black reaches out for Blake, suddenly White Kirim stomps in his way. Black says, Kirim, where are you going? As White Kirim starts to freeze the plasma frigate. Rude says he's heading for the frigate. Maybe it's going to destroy it? Whitley says, what? No, N is on that ship. As she goes running off, White calls out for Whitley. Black tries to get it away, saying, no, Reshiram, you're inside, aren't you? Stop. But White Kirim kicks him away. Black cries out, can't you hear my voice? White jumps on her superior, saying, Black, we have to stop Kirim, even if we have to use force. Iris hops on her Haxorus, saying, I know. White has also brought out her Volibee and, what was the other Pokemon's name? Docian. But as Blake pursues Colress says, your duty is to arrest the 7 sages, right? Do you have time to be chasing me? Blake says, unfortunately, I'm currently not in the service of the international police. Therefore, stopping violent and destructive actions is the top priority for me. Colress says, not in the service of the international police, Just as I thought. Always knew you were more than a simple minion of some authoritative figure, but I decided to disintegrate you the first time we met. So sadly, we'll never be friends, even though you've quit the international police. Colress removes his cloak, revealing his own Genesect. Oh, a red Genesect. Oh, okay. So, the shiny Genesect, like the one from the movie. Blake says, a red Genesect, so there was another Genesect. Colress says, and you're greatly mistaken if you think my Genesect is equal to yours. Keldeo sees this, saying, I always thought it was strange. It was the Pokemon that froze my mentors, but I never felt the eerie feeling, that sinister energy I felt from the building. I felt no hostility or hatred. In fact, I even felt some friendship. Oh, okay. That explains why Keldeo never seemed to get weird around the Genesect that froze his mentor. Because it wasn't that Genesect. It was the one Colress has. Keldeo says that, but this explains it. That red Genesect, that's the Pokemon that froze my mentors. And that is the one emitting the most sinister energy of all, not doing this to avenge my mentors. If I allow that human to keep controlling it, the red Genesect will not just be Blake's Genesect, the greatest threat ever to all my friends. And Keldeo transforms into his, I honestly never know what this is called, resolute form, to be continued. Man, this was a lot for 3 chapters. Getting the reunion of just the planning that Black had, even when it seemed like, okay, I thought he was just sealed away. I didn't realize I guess he was conscious this entire time to a certain degree, but maybe it was like viewing a dream from the outside, like he was kind of conscious, kind of not. But the fact that he was able to formulate a plan so well with N, and I'm glad that N wasn't just completely pushed to the side, but Black's reunion with White was such a wonderful moment. I loved it. That was beautiful. But it's also obvious that it feels like Kirim had its own plans from the very beginning. But this really puts Chorus in a different perspective. The fact that he threw away everything so easily, just, I thought it would be Getsis who betrayed him in the end, but it was Chorus. I'm kind of glad that Blake just wants to doggedly pursue him down, because you know what? He kind of deserves that. I'm interested to see where Whitley's story is taking her, though, because she's still grappling with a lot of thoughts and points of view and perspective, because she really got shooken by the thought that N was, actually kind of chill with Alder. But it did feel like if Alder and N had just actually gotten a moment together, they'd instantly hit it off. But I'm ready to see Chorus go down. I'm ready to see Getsis go down. Like, they just need to be stopped. That's it. The meeting between Black, White, Blake, and Whitley was actually pretty fun. They kind of fit together in an interesting way, because you have Black and his boundless energy, but he also has an analytical mind. You have White and her ability just to really kind of bring people together. She's just a good people person. Blake is good for just getting to the point. When you just need things to drive the plot, Blake is good. While Whitley, it's just her development and her growth that's very fascinating. So it just really makes her just interesting whole. Honestly, they kind of fill in that role that I feel that Bianca and Sheeran were kind of lacking for a while there, because we didn't get to see enough of them after a certain point. And I also love that we're really diving into the story of Keldeo. Like, I wasn't really sure at first if we were really going to do much with Keldeo's story and the Swords of Justice, but it's essentially just as interesting and intricate as what I'd seen in the Kirim and the Swords of Justice movie, what little of it I saw. I actually like that. I'm glad that Elise got to have her return. Elisa, I always call her Elise, and everyone seems to be coming together and convening. I'm glad that White Team Plasma is really playing a role. It's not just passive, and I like that we're actually seeing the Rude and Gorm actually having moments of showing that they really do regret their actions, and they really had a major change of heart over time. I would have loved to have seen when that turn kind of came, like little moments that helped to show that they were slowly switching over. But in 2 years, a lot can happen in 2 years. We're not getting as much of the Shadow Triad as we did before. I'm interested in where they're gonna eventually end up. Like, are they just gonna still be bad guys by the very end? Because if I remember correctly, didn't the Shadow Triad, didn't they like become better over time? Oh no, they're still loyal to Getsis up into the end. Okay, I guess I misread something previously, because I thought the Triad had become allies. It shows really how much I really didn't know about where this story was going. But why did Kirim decide to absorb Reshiram? Was it a plan? Was there something deeper? Or was it just instinct? Is it attacking the frigate? Why? I don't know, something feels missing. I hope Iris gets to show off what she's learned in all this time, though, too. I'm interested to see if maybe she and Black will have a clash at the very end of all this. Though it took her 2 years to finally get their badges, even though she had already completed in the league. So you have to get your badges all over again to compete? Oh man, that kind of sucks. Although I love Black just seething over Iris becoming champion. It's interesting that you kind of had to take her out of the picture so that he could actually be able to, that you had to take him out of the picture so that she could become champion. So who knows how that'll all wind out. But, all these people, Chorus gets this, they need to be arrested. Just lock them up. Lock them up. But I'm glad we also got an explanation as to why Keldeo was able to cooperate so well with Genesect. Because it was kind of weird that despite what Genesect had done, Keldeo just kind of rolled with it. And it makes a lot more sense that that wasn't the same Genesect. It just, it just really makes so much more sense. And I'm really thankful for that. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din and hope to see you later. So then, take care. Bye-bye.